Well, let's begin with a word of prayer, and we'll hop into Genesis chapter 4. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word passed down through generations so we could have a time of fellowship around it, worship and study and application. We pray for Bill and Diane. We know that normally Bill and Diane would be here. We know that you've placed him in your care. He's got a home in heaven. He's got some challenges right now that we pray that you give him strength and guidance, and his family as well. Give them peace in the days ahead. And thank you for those that are here, that are gathered in your house, wherever they might be, and those that make it possible for us to be here. We ask these things in your name and for your sake. Amen. Okay, if you haven't got a copy of the outline and you're watching this streaming, you can get that in the connection distribution from Friday and follow along there. Okay, the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings, lots of firsts. Firsts. I'm trying to enunciate here so you can pick that up. Where does chapter 3 end with? As Pastor Mike led us along last week, they've been banished from the garden. Not good. Due to the consequences of their sin, they chose to partake from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Maybe it wasn't an apple. Maybe it was a Macintosh. I don't know. But what a terrible trade. The first trade in history, recorded history. What did they give up? Everything. Fellowship with God, a place where they could not work too hard to get food. They lost their innocence. They lost their home. What else did they lose? They wanted to gain wisdom. Wisdom of what? Knowledge of what? Knowledge of evil. And how do you get knowledge of evil? You participate in it. They had it all lined up for many, many years, but they soon departed. They disobeyed God. We talked about last week. Conflict in the marriage has followed since then, having to work a lot harder than they used to. When I'm in our vegetable garden at home, and for the umpteenth time, I'm weeding it. Sometimes I look up and say, "Thank you, Adam." Or am I looking in the right direction? I don't know, but stay tuned. But it's harder than we had to do it, and that gets passed down to the next generation right away as well. So their offspring, including us, get to experience evil, a horrible thing. I don't know, I've gone as far as I think this is the answer to why do bad things happen to good people. They didn't do necessarily anything wrong. They live a good life, but yet due to the curse, we get to experience evil. And if we had a choice, we'd like to reverse that, and that will be done someday in the days ahead in heaven. Alrighty, so we're going to tackle a few more questions here. If you haven't found it in your hard copy or your electronic copy, please do that. And it says on your outline, we're going to look at a couple things this morning. Cain and Abel's offerings, God's counsel and warning to Cain, the first murder, another fugitive. Adam and Eve are fugitives from Eden. The angel is blocking their way to come back in over on the east side of Eden. How about that? And some of these things that happened so long ago, you can put a number on that if you want to. I'm not going to try. It still impacts us today, and we still can learn from it today. So there's some of that in our chapter today, some fresh insights, some things that we could be encouraged by, even though this is a horrific event we're going to look at and pass down to us as well, but we're going to take a look at those. We'll see that Eve begins her role as mother of all creation. How about that? Okay, we'll look at that a little bit. That was stated in verse 20 of chapter 3. But before long, the first two boys have a problem. We're going to delve into that. But it's nice that it ends on a high note. That's sometimes the way the Bible goes. I like those passages that have the word but, comma, in it. That's a nice study. This has got one of those as well. Okay, let's start by looking at verses 1 and 2. I'll read those for you. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. Okay, how about that? They weren't created from the dust of the earth like Adam. They weren't created like Eve from a rib. You know, it used to thought that man had one less rib than a woman. That was thought in medical science until they got the x-rays figured out. But those things are passed, down to us. So this was a normal birth. It says in the last chapter, she's going to experience childbearing. So there was pain in childbearing, and that's happening here as well. But even so, she gives credit to God. With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. What does the word Cain mean? It's hidden sort of in that phrase from Eve. It means acquired. I have acquired a man with the Lord's help. Any guesses on what Abel means? He wasn't around long. His name actually means temporary. And it's very, very true. He should have been like his father, living 930 years, but he didn't last very long because of what his brother did to him. Okay, so we see that Cain is the oldest. He works the soil. Abel's younger. He's working in the field with his flocks. And how long did they do that? Who knows? But I'll give you a little bit of date there. No more than 129 years, because that's when Seth was born. And then Cain split off before that time, and his replacement was Seth. So not long into creation did this stuff happen. Could have been more, but not more than a short length of time before this came true to fruition. Any questions on those couple of verses as we go through the outline? We're going to stop and say, any questions, any thoughts? And we'll do that as we work through the outline today. Okay, let's go on to verse 3. And this is how the Bible does it sometime. In the course of time. Doesn't tell you how long. There's a delay, sometimes 100 years between verses. Stay tuned. In the course of time, Cain brought forth some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. Here's the first but for you. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. Okay, how about that? One more verse for us, but let's see. All right, but Abel brought fat portions of his flock. Here we go. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. What happened? So, Cain was what? Very angry, and his face was downcast. I chose not to have Nathan give us his best downcast faith this morning, but it's not good. Your wife can tell when you're downcast, probably, if you show it. And he did show it. Cain did show it. We get that way. We pout. We're mad. And we're going to see what God says here in just a little bit. Okay, who brought what as offerings? Who brought what? Cain brings some fruit. My conjecture is broccoli, cauliflower, squash, and onions. Radishes. Some people like that stuff, not so much. The only words in Spanish I know is no picante. No picante. We don't like spicy things. Okay. How about our friend Abel? What did he bring? What did he bring? Some fat portions of an animal, the best of an animal. How about that? This is very similar to what the Israelites do in the future. Your firstborn of the fat offerings. So he is interrupting the future, perhaps, of his own life and sustenance. He's taking the firstborn, the best of the firstborn, and bringing them to God. So what does that tell us about Abel? He was thoughtful. What else? What else? Generous. He brought a choice offering. How about Cain? Give us a few adjectives about Cain. What do you think? Just enough. He brought some, not the best. Whatever the best vegetables would be, I don't know. But brought some. What else? Thoughtless, careless, cheap. Anything else? Cheap, not good at all. And we're going to see how the Bible treats that offering a little bit more as we look at other chapters as well. Abel had a thoughtful heart, and Cain had a thoughtless attitude, and we're going to look more into that again. So who did the Lord favor? Whose offering? Abel, and not Cain. As a result, we said, very angry on Cain's part, downcast faith. But that's not the end of the story. Could somebody find Proverbs 15:8 and read that for us? 15:8 of Proverbs. How are we supposed to approach sacrifice to the Lord? Who's got that for us? Okay. The offering of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord. He doesn't care for them. He doesn't want them. And we'll again look a little bit more into that as well. And we're supposed to prayerfully do things for the Lord. And Abel did that, and that brings a downward spiral coming up. Any questions about that? Anything to add? Okay, let's go on to verses 6 and 7. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master over it." Ever hear from the Lord like that when you're maybe going down the wrong path? Cain did. It's interesting, Adam's not mentioned here. Adam was quiet when the serpent was showing Eve the fruit, and then she gave it to him, but Adam said nothing there. He didn't say anything here. Not a good approach. Okay, more on that a little bit as well. So a big thing that stands out to me is, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do not do what is right. Does the Lord give Cain an opportunity to bring another sacrifice? Perhaps. We don't know that. But if you don't do what's right, sin is crouching at your door. That's an old kind of saying. Anybody have a thought? How would you interpret that? Sin is crouching at your door. What do you think? Temptation. How close is it? It's right there. Like a rattlesnake coiled up. If you get on the wrong side of that, you got a problem. All right? Sin is crouching at your door. I think I'd ask Monty Hall for a different door. You know, we don't want to go through that door, do we, Dave? That's a bad door to go through. He seems like he's giving him an opportunity, but what does Cain say? Thanks, God. I'm going to take my scroll. I'm going to look up Psalm 51. There's some good guidance here. I'm going to go to 1 John 1:9 and confess and get right with God. Does he do that? No, he's going to lay a trap for his brother. Instead of doing what is right, he's going to do something wrong. My dad would say in this situation, sometime we should pray and sometime we should flip over the tables. Jesus took a different approach. When things had to be done, he did. But even though Cain had the opportunity, he didn't take the opportunity. We've said in the past, if we see a gap, we should stand in it. If you see something going downhill around you with one of your Christian brothers or sisters, your family, you should intervene instead of being silent like Adam was, okay? Just an encouragement for you today. Look at, again, back to these verses. How personal does God get? You like that personal pronoun? You. Why are you angry? If you don't do what's right, if you don't do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It's right there, Cain. It's on you. It desires to have you, but you must master it. That's pretty blunt. That's pretty specific. God couldn't be more telling to what he's filling Cain about how his approach was wrong and how he should do something about it. How about that? Let's go on to the next couple of verses if you haven't got any questions about the ones we just covered. Okay, so we're setting up a problem here. In verse 8, we see that Cain disregards God's warning and counsel. Here we go. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" That's a bad saying that is even passed down to our time. And that's very callous, very indifferent. I don't know where he is. God knew where he was, and he wants to see Cain's reaction to the question. That's what he's getting at here. He already knows. What do you think of that? I looked up the textbook definition of first-degree murder. You got to have premeditation, deliberation, and intent. All of them are here. He takes an innocent man, invites him out, its own brother, a good man, so it's even worse if you can get worse than murder, but it's very, very bad. Somebody to know, somebody you should love, and he does him in. So God already knows what Cain is going to say, but he gives him the opportunity to fill him in. Unfortunately, not good at all. Any reactions to this? How should this have gone? "Hey, Abel, could I buy some of those sheep so I could take one and sacrifice it to God?" But he does. He goes the other direction completely and murders him. Okay. A very, very horrific event that, again, we still have the consequences. Abel was in God's image just like his dad was, and Cain has done a terrible, terrible thing. Let's go on a little bit. I'm going to read, but if you want to write it down, there's a passage in 1 John that nails this situation. It answers a question, why did Cain murder Abel? That's 1 John 3:12. 1 John 3:12. Excuse me, John says, "Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother." Why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. So John tells us exactly what's going on here. What a contrast. Romans 12:9 and 10. We're supposed to hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. So there's a complete difference from the way we should see things happening to the way things are happening. And we'll get back to those one another's coming up. All right. We're going to look at a three-part curse like we saw last week with Pastor Mike a little bit in the 5 verses that follow. Let's go to verse 10. All right. The Lord said, now these next words of what have you done? You think he was nonchalant? What have you done? I think it sounded like a thunderclap. What have you done? Or something. He got, anyways, he knows, but he wants to see what Cain's going to answer. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And here comes the curses. Now, you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Ooh, can't get much worse than that. Can't get much worse than that. Okay, so the 3 parts of the curse, what's the first one? He's going to be driven from the ground that brought forth his vegetables, where he made his living, kept him alive, and no more of that. He's going to be driven from that. Number 2, as goes a little further than that about the ground will no longer yield its crops for him. What was part of the curse on Adam? Thorns, thistles, weeds, by the sweat of your brow. But this is worse than that. Instead of just working hard to get it, no matter what you do, it's not going to produce any food for you. Okay? Very similar to Leviticus 26:9, when God's trying to get the Israelites to obey him, and says, I will break your stubborn pride and make the sky above you like iron and the ground beneath you like bronze. So it's going to dry up, no rain, and the ground's going to get very, very hard. you're going to have to work it really, really tough to get anything out of it. And they listened, and God didn't have to impose that curse on them. How about the third one? The third one. Verse 14. He's going to be a restless wanderer on the earth. He's going to be kept alive. Now, God could have said, later on, I'm going to say, if you shed man's blood, by man's blood, yours will be shed. He could have snuffed him out, but he wants to possibly keep him alive so his punishment will be known all the days of his life. He's got to deal with that and be reminded, why am I outside of the Lord's presence? Why am I not being able to farm? Why am I wandering around the wilderness? If you don't have a place to get food from, and you're on your own, nobody around to help you, you can't get a Venmo from somebody, what are you going to do? He's going to be robbing birds' eggs and looking for fish like Gollum, all kinds of bad stuff to keep alive. And every day he should say, I wish I wouldn't have, or whatever. Any of these curses sort of surprise you a little bit? I thought maybe I will be hidden from your presence. Maybe a little bit of remorse. He knows that he blew it, and now he's outside the Lord's will and outside of the fellowship that he could have had, and he's on his own. So that's very interesting. But he's looking into the future a little bit. Anyone that finds me will what? Curse, kill me. Kill me. God's going to protect him, keep him alive, as we're going to see in the next section here. But again, that's very, very interesting that the curse goes that far. Okay. Whoever will find me will kill me. That's not good. Maybe a little bit remorse, who knows? Whoever finds me will kill me. He's looking in the future. But there's not a lot of people on earth. There's just he and Adam and Eve so far. Okay, we'll take a look at that just a teeny little bit more. But Cain knows that somebody will want to kill him because what he has done. It's all on him, and he's going to pay for it for a long, long time. Here's another kind of a but thing here in verse 15. Here we go. But the Lord said to Cain, not so. That's not so about who's going to find you will kill you. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. That's the first big speculation point for some people in this chapter. What was the mark of Cain? Now, I went to a tattoo parlor and asked for one. No, I'm kidding. You can get those today. The mark of Cain. It looks like a number 7 with a couple dots on it. It's possibly part of the Lord's name back then. All right? We don't know what it was, but it was effective. For hundreds of years, kept them alive. Now, you ever hear of people that look in the Bible to find some way to justify what they're doing? Not us, of course. On a bad thing, I mean. There's actually people that think the mark of Cain was darker skin. So they think it's okay, or thought it was okay. If they see someone darker skin, they can give them a hard time. People have gone that far, and that's thousands of years of pain in about 2 sentences. People justify their actions. It's horrible to try to do that, misinterpret the Bible to give you a reason to be a little bit, a lot wacky. Very, very, very bad. Okay. Well, regardless what the mark was, that word means tattoo. Okay. It was very, very effective. Cain lived, as we see, and we're going to find out what happened to his family here a little bit. Okay. Going on to the next couple of verses, unless you've got some questions. So the mark of Cain, what was it? Some way so God could pass on, leave this guy alone. And people did. Now the next verses are a bunch of them here, so we're going to just point out a few firsts after we go to 16 and 17, find out exactly what happened to Cain. So, verse 16, Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. So further east than they already were. And 17, Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son, Enoch. All righty. This is the second big one. right on cue. That's the big question that most people have about Genesis, and in particular to Genesis chapter 4. Okay? All right, good. That's a very, very good question. And thank you for leading us into that. Okay. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of math here. My mom had 5 boys in 8 years. I thought that was a problem since I was the last. They quit when they had me. Okay. Her sister had 9 children in 17 years. And that was a problem. If I got my memory from when the Pastor Mike introduced Linda, his wife, she's one of 11 children. Multiply that by 5. That's a lot of biscuits and gravy or something. All right, that's a lot. Let's take a look at chapter 4, and we'll get Margaret's question a little bit. Verse 3 of chapter 5. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness and his own image, and he named him Seth. Okay, we're getting there. Verse 4, after Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Together, we'll go to verse 5 a little bit and 6 to flesh it out. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years and he died, and Seth had lived 105 years and became the father of Enosh. Okay. I did do a little research. Some things I Google, some things I noodle. But guess how many, just out of the blue, it's thought that Adam and Eve had how many children? You're living 800 years after your first one came out. It adds up to the year I was born. Not 1956, but 56. 33 boys and 23 girls. How about it? That's a lot. That comes from the ancient Jewish historian Josephus. We mentioned him before, born just after Jesus was crucified in AD 37 there. 33 boys, 23 girls. Okay, so obviously Cain married a relative. Some say his sister. I'd go as far as maybe a niece. But they were spread out over 500, 600, 700 years. Some had children. They lived a while, had more kids. They lived a while. There was probably thousands of women out there that Cain could have bumped into when he's wandering. Okay. The math is even shorter for Seth because he was 105 when he got married, I think. See. But again, they probably, no other choice but a sister or a niece. Now, when people question, where did Cain's wife come from? Sometimes it's just, they're inquisitive, but what are other people doing? Saying that Genesis isn't true. Now, when we look at this bad topic of incest, we're looking at it from our understanding, looking backwards. And it is a horrible problem. They're looking at it in the Bible from creation forward. Everything was perfect. God saw it and it was good. Everything was perfect. Everybody was perfect genetically. I had to look that up, how to spell that. Genetically, okay? It used to be in my day we did blood tests before we got married. I don't think they do them anymore, do they? They want to make sure there's no hereditary issues in the future. But if you're perfect, as they were, you're not going to have those kind of issues. But people try to tear down the Bible by that question. Interesting. Question God. It couldn't have happened, but again, they've got a different approach than God had, for sure. Okay. What else here? Okay, back to our text. Cain has become a what? A fugitive, a vagabond, a wanderer, okay, like his parents. Now lives in the land of Nod. Okay. And how long did he wander around before he got married? We don't know. Looking at the number of children, and they had children, and spreading out, could have been a couple hundred years, 300 years. We don't know. Could have been less than that. But he tries to reverse part of the curse, as you see in verse 17. What does he do? He builds a city. Not the size of Hershey, probably, but that word means permanent settlement. So he's decided to stop wandering and settle down, trying to change what God has placed upon him for a punishment. How about that? So, a lot of people around, they could have bumped into her or into him and gone from there. Let's see. He maybe is asking for a little bit of redemption. I'm going to stop being a wanderer by settling down. Okay, that was a good question, Margie. Anybody else? I hadn't thought about that too much, but when you look at it, from God's perspective, I can make the universe out of what? My spoken word. I can create man out of what? Dust of the earth. If I can do that, I can handle giving Cain a wife. Easy. That's easy. That's easy. Easy for God, that is. Okay. Let's go down to 18 and following. Okay, down to the end of 24. Won't read all those. Just point out some of the major spots here. If you look at those names, we got Cain, Enosh, Irad, and so on. We get down to Lamech in verse 19. Okay, Lamech was Cain's great-great-great-great-grandson. And he wasn't that great. We're going to find out here in a little bit why. He's going to marry, in verse 19, a couple of women. Going to give a couple more firsts here. In 20, Jabal, the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother was Jubal. He played drums and played the bass guitar. No, he's the father of all who play the harp and the flute. So some first for you there. All right, Zillah had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. There you go. Now we get down to 23. What do we see here? I'll read these. Lamech said to his wives, is he bragging or complaining? You figure it out. Ada and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech. Hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Anything strike you from that passage? What's he doing? Beating his chest. He's proud that he's killed somebody. And maybe he's trying to reverse the curse, or maybe he's playing a part into it. But those numbers we see in Matthew again, where Peter says, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? Come on, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm okay. No. 70 times 7. The same words are here. That's a big number. Now, Peter might want to count to 490, then quit. But the point is, just keep doing it. So Lamech is saying, I've got maximum revenge. That's a big number, and that's the revenge that I've been able to take on that guy for wounding me. Not good at all. That moral standard he wants to toss out. And we can't do that. We don't get to reject God's moral standard and have one of our own. A lot of people try that today, but it's not going to work. Not going to work. Okay. Wow. Almost down the end of our outline here in verses 25 and 6. We're going to go forward, unless anybody's got any questions about the last part. Okay, a couple more firsts. Lamech's poor approach. That's 7 generations right there for Cain. Next week, if Lord willing, we'll talk about Genesis 5, where there's 10 generations from Adam to Noah. So there might be a little bit of parallelism here. The earth might have been judged by the flood in Lamech's grandson's time. And based on what Lamech has done, probably they've contributed to the evil and the bad stuff going on earth. Okay, here we go. Verse 25. We're getting into the high note mentioned earlier in our study. Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord. How about that? That high point. Men began to call on the name of the Lord. Now, I could say, how about anybody? Who's the grandfathers in here? Okay. When you become a grandfather, when Adam became a grandfather, they started calling upon the name of the Lord. That'd be nice. but I don't think that was the main reason. But you see what progression could happen, a godly line. Let's not go where the other guys led us. Let's go in a different direction, and this direction leads to Noah being the preserver of the godly line through the flood and the destruction of all the evil on the earth at that time. So a big difference. We mentioned Noah. Go over to 6:9 of Genesis. A couple pages maybe one. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. How about that? So that's inferred, as we see men became to call on the name of the Lord, and that happened, that would be 8 generations later with Noah, and the good thing that we had him around to save us and give us a remnant. I think that's great. No matter how bad it is around us, God preserves a remnant. There was a remnant in Adam's time. There was a remnant in Noah's time. There's a remnant in our time. We're part of that to preserve and talk to others about the Lord and keep that sequence going. How about that? Anything about verses 25 or anything else that we mentioned so far to talk about? Quite a story. Here, go Bill, please. Right. Right. Yep. That's why we ought to behave. It might happen to you. It's a there's good examples in the Bible and there's bad examples. Right. Very good. Yep. You got it. Anything else? That's a good one. Okay. Very good. I've put at the bottom of your outline some application questions, and we can delve into those. We got time. We might not get to verse 5. I'll add a few verses to that if you'd like to look those up later. But somebody look up Psalm 51:16. Some brave person find Hosea 6:6. And then back to Romans in Romans 12:1. Sacrifices in quotes here a little bit because there's varying degrees of sacrifice. The Jews sacrifice 1 million or more animals through their time on the earth, and more to follow. Psalm 51:16. Anybody got that? 51:16. Yep. You do not delight in sacrifice, or I would bring it. That's David speaking to God after David's sin with Bathsheba. You do not take pleasure in burnt offerings. It takes more than that to get right with God. Hosea 6:6. We need to acknowledge God and God's place in our life. Very good. Romans 12:1. Paul says to them, got it? This is your true worship. Very good. Did you read that or did you know that? It's like Awana coming back to you or whatever. Very good. I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Any other references come to mind about sacrifice? We got a few more about offerings coming up. Okay, 2. We'll go there. Number 2. How does God look upon the offerings we bring? 1 Samuel 15:22, Philippians 4:18, and Hebrews 11:4. I'll take the first one as you find Philippians 4:18 and Hebrews 11:4. Samuel talking to Saul here. Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. That's that famous passage when Saul says, I killed all those people, I killed all those flocks. Samuel says, what is this bleating of sheep and mooing of cows I'm hearing? And tears them apart. Philippians 4:18. Okay, so when we give gifts to our global partners, God's pleased. It's an acceptable sacrifice. It's pleasing to him, as Epaphroditus sent money to Paul. Okay, in the faith chapter of Hebrews 11, what's 11:4? Right to this topic we've been talking about. All right. Even though Abel's dead, he speaks to us like today. How about it? Okay, somebody go back a few pages to Galatians 6. We'll get to that, 6:1. Number 3, how can we counsel, as God counseled Cain, but he didn't listen, but we should. How can we counsel others who may have, quote, sin crouching at their door? Galatians 6:1. Who's got it? How about it? So a two-sided thing there. You're supposed to be spiritual, developed enough to tell others that's not a good thing to do, and watch out if we don't, because it could boomerang on ours as well. Any other passages about counseling others or helping out those that might be going the wrong direction? Okay, if not, I need my mobile Bible on this one. I was telling Patty I downloaded something that came into a text. Can't get it to print out. I don't know why. Okay. How can we, number 4, be our brother's keepers in a good way? Cain didn't meet it good. He was trying to get off the hook. There's lots of these in the Bible. 59 places, that 33 of them. There's one that keeps coming up over and over because we need to hear it. Any one another's in the Bible that you can share about what we're supposed to be doing to one another? Be at peace with one another. This used to be done. Wash one another's feet. Love one another. That's the big one. That's in there about 10 times. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. That's the one we mentioned today. Live in harmony with one another. Stop passing judgment on one another. Accept one another, then just as Christ accepted you. Instruct one another. Greet one another with a holy kiss. I knew somebody got in trouble with that one. Let's see. When you come together to eat, wait for one another. Have equal concern for one another. We did that one. Serve one another in love. Ooh, here's a bad one. It's in Galatians, not far from where we went earlier. If you keep on biting and devouring each other, you will be destroyed by each other. Carry one another's burdens. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Be kind and compassionate to one another. Speak to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Next column. In humility, consider others better than yourselves. Do not lie to one another. Bear with one another. Forgive whatever grievances you might have with one another. Admonish one another. Make your love increase and overflow with each other. Encourage one another. Do not slander one another. And one more from James here. Confess your sins to one another. Nice study. If you look up all the one another's in the Bible, good encouragement to us. Let me give you a couple more passages for number 5. We know this, but let me just give you a couple I come up with if you'd like to write them down. As we're getting close to closing, how can we continue to call on the name of the Lord? As we mentioned at the close of the Bible, that high note. Psalms 95:6. Psalms 95:6. Proverbs 15:29. Proverbs 15:29. Zechariah 13:9b. Romans 12:11 and 12. Again, that's Zechariah 13:9, the last part of it. Romans 12:11 and 12. And Colossians 4:2. Okay. Let me just ask you, look those up on your own if you'd like to. Any questions about what we talked about today in Genesis chapter 4? Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.